There are some moments in life when the world suddenly tilts beneath your feet and nothing is ever the same again. For me, that moment happened on a cool Thursday morning in Chicago, the kind of morning when the city is shrouded in gray clouds and the breeze off Lake Michigan is just sharp enough to make you pull your coat a little tighter. I never thought in all my years that the person who would bring me to my knees would be my mother. Even now, as I look back and try to piece together every conversation, every glance, every warning I ignored, I still struggle to understand how it all unfolded. That morning started just like any other. I was running on too little sleep, having spent the previous night working late at the marketing firm where I was still clawing my way up the ladder. After clocking out, I didn't go straight home. Instead, I headed for my gym, a little second-floor place on a quiet street near Lincoln Park. I liked the gym, not just for the equipment or the friendly staff, but because it had a row of old lockers tucked away in the back. Most people kept gym clothes, water bottles, and maybe an extra pair of sneakers in them. But my locker, number 37, was different. To me, that locker was more than a metal box. It was a safe haven, a symbol of hope, and, in a strange way, a piece of my future. Inside that locker, carefully hidden in an envelope wrapped with a red ribbon, was everything I had saved for the last 6 years, $990,000. Every bonus check, every holiday shift, every penny I could spare from the tips I earned working nights at a restaurant in New York years ago, it was all there. I never spent much on myself, no fancy vacations, no new car, no impulsive shopping sprees. I had a plan. That money was supposed to be my ticket out, the seed money for my own business in Manhattan. I imagined myself walking into an office with my name on the door, maybe even owning an apartment overlooking Central Park. It was a dream that kept me moving when life felt too heavy to bear. As I walked up the stairs to the gym that morning, I remember thinking about how close I was. Another few months, and I'd finally crossed the $1 million mark. Maybe then, I could quit my job, pack up my things, and start again. The idea made me smile, just a little, as I pushed open the gym door and nodded at the sleepy receptionist. I didn't even bother to work out that day. I just wanted to check on the envelope, to hold it in my hands and remind myself that the future I was building was real. But as soon as I turned the corner and saw the locker, something inside me twisted. The lock was hanging at a strange angle, as if someone had fumbled with it. My heart hammered in my chest as I dialed the combination. My fingers felt clumsy, but muscle memory took over, and the lock clicked open. I pulled the metal door wide, expecting the comforting sight of the envelope tucked against the back wall. Instead, I found emptiness. The envelope was gone. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring into the cold, hollow space. It was as if my mind refused to process what I was seeing. I searched the locker, feeling along the seams, checking the corners, thinking maybe I had just misplaced it somehow. But there was nothing. No envelope. No ribbon. Nothing but a single sheet of paper folded neatly in half. I picked it up with trembling hands. My vision blurred for a second as I tried to make sense of the words scrawled in blue ink, in handwriting I knew all too well, my mother's handwriting. The note was short, almost cheerful, as if what she'd done was nothing more than a harmless prank. "Thank you for paying for your sister," the note read. "Now she can have fun on the island." My knees nearly gave out. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I pressed my hand to my chest, willing my heart to slow down. I read the note again, hoping I'd misunderstood, that there was some other meaning, some hidden joke. But the truth settled on me like a lead blanket. My mother had taken everything I'd worked for and given it away so my sister, her golden child, Julia, could buy a house for her honeymoon. Not just any house either. An island house, no less. A house I'd never even seen. All the warning signs I'd ignored over the years came rushing back. The whispered phone calls, the questions about my savings, the way she always seemed to favor Julia no matter what I did. I remembered a conversation from just a week before, when my mother had asked if I was still keeping money somewhere safe, and if I'd ever thought about helping my sister out. I'd brushed it off, not wanting to fight. I never imagined she'd actually take action. I sank onto the cold tile floor, the note still clutched in my hand. I felt anger and betrayal, but underneath it all, there was a deep, aching sadness. I had always tried so hard to believe the best about my family. I wanted to think that, no matter what, they'd have my back. But now, all I could see was my mother's face, smiling as she wrote that note, convinced she was doing the right thing. For Julia. Always for Julia. People say that money changes people, but I think it just reveals who they really are. In that empty locker room, with the sounds of the city muffled behind thick walls, I realized that I was on my own. The safety net I thought I had was gone. I couldn't call my mother. I couldn't call Julia. I didn't even want to tell my friends. I felt ashamed, as if I'd let this happen by being too trusting, too naive. I sat there for a long time, the cold seeping through my jeans, my mind spinning in circles. I didn't know what to do next. The dreams I'd been holding onto felt so far away now, as if they belonged to someone else. But even as I grieved, a small, stubborn flame inside me refused to go out. I had lost everything, but I was still standing. And I promised myself right then and there that I would find a way to get back up, no matter what it took. People always told me I was too trusting, too open-hearted for my good. That day in the locker room, when I found my money gone and my mother's note mocking me, I almost believed them. But what no one really knew, not even my family, was that I'd learned to be careful the hard way. I'd seen enough in my own home to realize you can't always trust the people who are supposed to protect you. I was naive once, but life had taught me to always have a backup plan. That plan started with Lucas Graham. Lucas and I had met years ago, back when I was a college student in New York. He was already a police officer then, still young but with the calm seriousness of someone twice his age. We'd struck up a friendship after I'd helped him out at a community event, and over time, I came to see him as one of the only people I could really rely on. When I moved to Chicago for work, he followed a year later, transferring precincts, chasing better pay and a fresh start, just like me. Our lives kept crossing in ways I never expected. It was Lucas who first told me about the old lockers at the gym. He worked out there off-duty, and he liked the privacy in the back room, away from the crowds. The place was nothing fancy, paint peeling, cheap linoleum floors, always smelling faintly of sweat and chlorine from the pool upstairs. But it was sturdy, tucked away from the city's constant noise. When I started worrying about my savings, about where to keep such a large sum, Lucas offered a solution that seemed too simple to be real. "Use my locker," he said one evening after we'd finished a run together along the lake. "Nobody touches those old lockers except me, and I change the locks every month. The only other key is with me." I remember laughing at the idea at first. Who stashes nearly $1 million in a gym locker? It sounded like something out of a bad crime show. But Lucas wasn't joking. He was a cop. He understood risk better than anyone. And at that point in my life, I trusted him more than my own family. So I began hiding my savings there, not all at once, but little by little. Every time I scraped together a few $1,000s. I wrapped the cash in paper, tucked it deep in the back, and told myself it was safe. Lucas never asked questions. He just kept my secret and made sure nobody paid attention to locker 37. But here's the part my mother didn't know. The money she thought she'd stolen had already been gone for months. A year before, I started to get nervous. Maybe it was the way Julia kept asking about my job, or the way my mother tried to pry into my finances. Maybe it was just my anxiety, my old habit of double-checking every lock and light switch. Whatever it was, I decided to move everything into a private account in New York, a small bank, the kind that didn't ask many questions if you walked in with a large deposit and a story about old family jewelry. I kept only one crisp $100 bill in the envelope at the gym, along with stacks of blank paper cut to the size of cash. It was an old trick Lucas had told me about, enough to fool a quick glance, not enough to lose sleep over if someone got greedy. I never thought it would come to that, but I wanted to be prepared. My mother, I knew, could be charming and manipulative, especially when it came to Julia. She'd always put Julia first, even when it meant hurting me. I'd seen her lie to friends, bend the truth to family, cut corners just to get Julia ahead. It hurt, but I told myself I could handle it. I just needed to keep my guard up and trust Lucas. So, the day I found my locker empty, I didn't fall apart. Not completely. Once the first shock wore off, I sat there on the floor, the note shaking in my hand, and I started to piece it all together. My mother must have somehow gotten the combination. Maybe she'd watched me unlock it. Maybe she'd sweet-talked the gym manager. However, she'd done it. She'd walked away with nothing but decoy paper and a single real bill. The rest, all $990,000, was sitting untouched in a secure account back in New York. I almost smiled at the thought. But the betrayal still stung. I wanted to believe my mother wouldn't actually go through with it, that she'd think better of stealing from her daughter. But deep down, I knew she'd always see me as second to Julia, as someone whose dreams and hard work could be sacrificed if it meant making Julia happy. This time, the gift wasn't just a borrowed dress or a paid bill. It was everything I'd saved for my future, everything I'd worked for. Or so she thought. Lucas was the first person I called that day. I didn't cry, didn't shout. I just told him what happened, every detail. He listened quietly, his voice steady on the other end of the line. When I finished, he sighed. "She's crossed a line," he said. "But you did the right thing. The money is safe. Let's keep it that way." We met that night at a diner on Clark Street, a cheap place that served good pie and bad coffee. Lucas sat across from me, his uniform jacket slung over the back of the booth. He talked me through what came next, what to say to the bank, how to protect my accounts, what to do if my mother tried to contact me again. He offered to open a report, but I shook my head. "I don't want to ruin her life," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I just want to move on." Lucas nodded, his face softening. Sometimes moving on is the best revenge. Still, part of me wondered if I should have done more, confronted my mother, told Julia the truth, demanded an apology. But I knew it wouldn't change anything. Julia would always believe what she wanted to believe, and my mother would always put her first. What mattered now was protecting myself. That night, as I walked home beneath the orange glow of the city lights, I realized something had shifted inside me. I was done playing the role of the loyal daughter, the dependable sister, the one who kept giving even when there was nothing left to give. I'd learned to guard my heart, just as I guarded my savings. And thanks to Lucas, I still had a chance at the life I wanted. I might have lost my family's trust, but I hadn't lost everything. I still had my freedom, my future, and a friend I could count on. And as I closed the door to my apartment and looked out over the sleeping city, I knew that was more than enough. I always used to think that Julia and I would grow old together, the way sisters sometimes do. We'd have morning coffees on the porch, talk about the past, and laugh at old memories. But life has a way of making sisters strangers, especially when secrets and betrayal get between them. The day Julia called from her new island house, it felt like I was speaking to someone I barely knew. The call came in on a sunny Saturday afternoon. I was at my apartment in Chicago, sitting by the window and trying to focus on a book. The truth was, I hadn't slept well since the day I found my locker empty. I kept replaying it all in my mind, wondering how my mother could do something like that and what Julia knew, if anything. When my phone buzzed and Julia's name popped up, I hesitated before answering. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but curiosity and that old ache for my sister's voice made me pick up. "Hey, big sis." Julia's voice bubbled through the phone, bright and full of excitement. I could hear the ocean in the background, the seagulls, and the distant laughter of her new husband, Mark. I tried to smile, to sound normal. "Hi, Julia. How's the honeymoon?" I asked, my voice steady, almost too calm. "Oh my God, it's perfect," she gushed. "You wouldn't believe it. The house is right on the beach, and the water is this crazy turquoise color like you see in magazines. Mark and I wake up every morning and just walk straight out to the sand. There's even a little dock where we can fish or just sit and watch the sunset. Seriously, this place is paradise." I closed my eyes for a second and pictured her there, sun-kissed and barefoot, the ocean breeze in her hair. I should have been happy for her, but my stomach twisted with something closer to grief. I thought of all the years I dreamed of buying my place, of saving every dollar, of building a future. Now my mother had thrown it all away so Julia could play Queen of the Island, if only for a while. Julia kept talking, oblivious to the storm inside me. I still can't believe Mom pulled this off. She kept saying it was a family surprise, but I know you helped. I mean, who else could have made this happen? I don't even know how you managed it, but thank you, seriously. This is the best gift anyone's ever given me. Her words cut deeper than she could have known. I let her talk, pretending everything was fine, nodding and murmuring and then in all the right places. I didn't have the heart to tell her the truth. I wanted to scream that I hadn't given her the money, that I'd nearly lost everything because of Mom's schemes, but I stayed silent. What good would it do? Julia had always believed in fairy tales, in happy endings bought by someone else's sacrifice. As she chattered on about the island, the neighbors, the tiny shops in town, I realized how much distance had grown between us. Not just the miles, but something bigger and sadder. We'd always been close when we were little, but adulthood had made us rivals in ways I never wanted. Julia had always been the favorite, the one Mom looked after, while I was left to fend for myself. It wasn't her fault, but it hurt just the same. After the call, I sat with the phone in my lap, staring at the blank screen. I felt hollow. The apartment felt colder, lonelier than ever. I knew I needed to talk to someone, so I dialed Lucas. He answered on the second ring, his voice calm as ever.
Hey.
How are you holding up? He asked. I talked to Julia. She thinks I paid for the house, I said quietly. She's so happy. She doesn't know what really happened. Lucas sighed, and for a moment, I just listened to the hum of his breath through the line. Do you want her to know? He asked. I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me.
No.
What's the point? Mom already told her it was a family surprise. Telling her now would just ruin everything. She'd never believe me anyway. We talked for a while, Lucas reassuring me that I'd done the right thing, that sometimes letting go was the only way to move forward. He asked if I'd thought about pressing charges, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. The truth was, I still felt trapped, caught between my love for my family and my need to protect myself. A few days later, everything changed. Lucas called me at work, his voice urgent but steady. We've found your mother, he said. She's in Boston. She tried to deposit a large amount of cash at a bank, but most of the bills were fake. The bank flagged it and called us. She's being held for questioning. I felt my world stop. I never thought it would come to this. My mother, arrested and facing fraud charges. My first instinct was to panic, to imagine the headlines, the shame, the phone calls from distant relatives. But then a strange calm washed over me. I hadn't done anything wrong. I had protected myself, just like Lucas taught me. The money was safe, my future still within reach. Still, it felt strange to hear the news. I remembered all the times my mother had tucked me in at night, made me soup when I was sick, and held me when I cried. Now she was just another name in a police report. I wish things could be different, that we could rewind time and fix everything before it broke. But that was just another fantasy, like Julia's island paradise, a dream that could never be real. Lucas promised to keep me updated. He told me not to worry, that the law would handle things from here. I thanked him, my voice small, and hung up. I sat at my desk for a long time, staring out the window at the city below. Life went on. People hurried to lunch, cars honked, and children laughed in the park. But for me, everything had changed. That night, I called Julia again, just to hear her voice. I didn't tell her about Mom's arrest or the fake money or the investigation. I let her believe in her fairy tale just a little longer. Maybe it was kindness, or maybe I just wasn't ready to face another loss. I wished her happiness, told her to enjoy the sun and the sea. After I hung up, I cried for the first time since the day I opened that empty locker. Sometimes, losing what you thought you needed is the only way to find out who you really are. I wasn't sure what would come next, but I knew one thing for sure. I would never let anyone steal my future again. After everything that happened, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the endless phone calls and awkward silences, I knew I needed a real change. Chicago, once my home, now felt like a city full of shadows and memories I didn't want to carry anymore. Every corner, Every street, every little coffee shop reminded me of what I had lost and, in a strange way, what I had survived. I craved fresh air, a new start, and the chance to build a life where I could finally breathe again. So, I did the scariest thing I've ever done. I left. It was a quiet morning in late autumn when I closed the door of my apartment for the last time. The sky was gray, and the city felt hushed, as if it was holding its breath for me. I had only a single suitcase, packed with the essentials, a few changes of clothes, my favorite books, a photograph of me and Julia when we were young, and, of course, the paperwork and information for my savings account. I looked around at the empty walls, trying not to think about all the nights I'd spent here, dreaming of something better. Then I turned off the lights, locked the door, and walked away. My flight to London was overnight. As the plane took off, I pressed my forehead against the window, watching the city lights scatter beneath me like so many lost hopes. For the first time in months, I let myself imagine a future that didn't involve my family's expectations, my mother's schemes, or Julia's happiness balanced on the cost of my own. I thought about Lucas and how he'd helped me, not just by keeping my secret safe, but by reminding me that there are still good people in the world. People who show up when you need them, who offer you shelter and protection, and who ask nothing in return except honesty. London greeted me with drizzle and the bustling sound of black cabs and buses. I rented a small flat in Southwark, not far from the River Thames. The place was nothing fancy, just 2 rooms with creaky floors and a window that overlooked a quiet courtyard. But it was mine, and the key in my hand felt like a promise. Each morning, I'd wake up early, brew a cup of strong coffee, and wander along the riverbanks, letting the city's ancient heart teach me how to move forward. Everything in London was new smells, new voices, new routines. I found a job at a little bookshop near Borough Market, where the owner, a kind woman named Rose, hired me after a single conversation. She said she could tell I was running from something, but never pressed for details. Instead, she gave me space to heal, to rebuild. The work was peaceful, the kind of quiet repetition that lets your mind rest and your spirit slowly stitch itself back together. I made friends, almost by accident. There was Marcus, the baker from the shop next door, who slipped me pastries on rainy mornings and told me stories about growing up in Europe. There was Isabel, an artist from France who lived upstairs, who taught me how to see beauty in broken things. And there was my neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, an older lady who loved gardening and insisted I join her for tea on Sundays. They didn't know my whole story, but they didn't need to. Their kindness was enough. Still, there were nights when the loneliness crept in. I missed America, its wide roads, its chaotic energy, the strange comfort of hearing my accent in a crowd. I missed the way autumn leaves piled up along the sidewalks in Chicago, the way the city came alive with lights at Christmas, and yes, even the bittersweet memories of family dinners before everything fell apart. I wondered about Julia, about whether she'd ever learn the truth or if she'd keep living in the fairy tale our mother had built for her. I wondered if my mother regretted what she'd done, or if she even understood the damage she caused. The ache was still there, but it was softer now, like an old scar. I kept in touch with Lucas. He called every few weeks, checking in, making sure I was safe, and reminding me that it was okay to start over. He told me the case against my mother had gone quietly through the courts. She pleaded guilty, avoided jail, and moved somewhere in the Midwest. He said Julia still thought the island house was a miracle, and part of me was grateful for that. Let her keep her paradise, I thought. Maybe it would make up for all the things our family couldn't give her. Slowly, I began to trust myself again. I learned to make new routines. Morning walks through Hyde Park, afternoons lost in the stacks of secondhand books, evenings spent watching the lights of the city from my little window. I even started saving again, bit by bit, telling myself that I didn't need $1 million to feel safe. All I needed was to know I could survive, that I could choose my happiness without asking permission from anyone else. London taught me that family isn't always the people you're born to. Sometimes, family is the friend who sits with you in silence when you have nothing left to say, or the neighbor who brings you soup when you're sick, or the stranger who gives you directions when you're lost. Sometimes, family is the community you build for yourself, out of patience and kindness and shared hope. As the months passed, I stopped waiting for an apology that would never come. I stopped wondering what I could have done differently. I forgave myself for trusting too much, for loving my family even when it hurt me. And little by little, I started writing again, not just in my journal, but stories, poems, little notes to myself. Each word was a piece of the life I was building, brick by brick. One evening, I sat by the river, watching the city lights flicker on the water, and realized that I was free not just from my mother's control or Julia's shadow, but from the past itself. I had lost my family's trust, yes, but I had found something even more precious: my freedom. And so, my new life began. Not in the way I'd planned, not with the people I thought would stand by me, but with the courage to choose myself. I don't know where the story will go from here, but for the first time, I am the one writing it. And this time, it's truly my own.